So I just watched Project Hail Mary after reading the book. I think one of my biggest issues during the movie is because I read the book, I was always thinking of how they were going to get to the next plot point because I knew what was supposed to happen, and also constantly trying to keep track of what was going to be left in or left out from the books. There definitely were a lot of changes made, and it's the nature of converting something that's mainly an internal monologue to a movie format while still keeping the runtime pretty palatable. One change that they made, though, that kind of makes sense to me is that in the books, Rocky has extra fuel to give to Grace to get home to Earth because Iridians don't understand how relativity works. So Rocky actually had way more astrophage than he needed to do the round trip. But in the movie, they frame it in a way that he gives up some of his astrophage in order for Rocky to get home slower, but for Grace to get home in general. So it's showing kind of like the sacrificial nature of the relationship, I guess. It did kind of stink that a lot of the science that Grace was doing was either glossed over or off-screened, and I wish we could see more of the dynamic of Grace being an exceptional scientist and Rocky being an exceptional engineer on screen. But it seemed like all the changes they made were trimming down the science aspects of the book in order to spend more time establishing the dynamic between Rocky and Grace. For example, they cut out the whole part of how they paved the Sahara Desert and destroyed Earth's ecosystem in order to farm enough astrophage to even be able to send them to Tau Ceti. But that's a change that I feel like can be off-screened. And they did a similar thing with the Tau amoeba and how it can leak through and eat astrophage. In the book, it actually happens twice, and the first time it happens is when Rocky's still on the ship and it leaks and eats all the fuel and the ship actually turns off completely. And the second time that it happens in the book is exactly how it happens in the movie, and I can understand why they removed the first time that it happens in order to make the reveal of finding out that it can leak through and eat astrophage a bigger, more impactful reveal. Also, it was interesting that they cut out the fact that you need to have a special gene to even be eligible to be part of Project Hail Mary in the first place. You need to have this gene to be able to successfully undergo the multi-year coma without dying. And that was part of the reason why Ryland Grace was so important and why Strat kept him along for the whole journey. He was definitely important to every finding of astrophage, but it gives more like leniency to the fact that we sent a middle school teacher and former academic into space, I guess. One change in the movie that I did like, though, is that we got a glimpse of Earth after the Beatles had returned from space and with the information that Ryland Grace gave them. It was weird, though, seeing that Strat hadn't aged a bit. Isn't she supposed to be like 30 years older or something? Who knows? But yeah, that was a cool change. I understand why they added that. I feel like in the book, it's an internal monologue, so you're not supposed to see what happens on Earth. You just know that Earth is saved because Rocky and Iridian scientists told him that the Petrova line on the sun was fixed, but it was cool to see Earth. I was content with that change. And speaking of Strat, they definitely made her more nice and likable throughout the movie in order to make the reveal that she sent Grace against his will that much more impactful, I guess. But it was cool. I didn't mind it.